Hey, howdy folks, welcome to this week's review of Impact Wrestling. They put on a hell of a show this week. We had only a handful of matches, but basically there's a lot of the sort of resolution to upcoming or feuds that have been going on for a while. So let's take a look at how we did today. We started off with Bobby Roode versus Eric Young in a last man standing match. Pretty brutal match from the two of these guys. They're, I wouldn't call either one of them really known for a more like violent style, but these guys went all at it. It was a pretty brutal match. A lot of back and forth. Neither one really getting the upper hand for any significant point in time. It's really well done though. Lots of like big impact moves with at one point Eric Young teasing the pile driver on the stairs. It got pretty brutal. They got the tables involved, but they kept teasing like, who's at the table, what's going on. I really like the fact that every time that Eric Young was knocked down and Bobby Roode would like walk away to like back up for a clothesline or anything, Taz and Josh Matthews kept bringing up the fact that he's turning his back on Eric Young. He's not afraid of him, which is a cool little dynamic in there. At the end, actually before the end, one of the things that I thought was really interesting is we saw Robert Roode. He whips Eric Young off the ropes and he basically goes for a back body drop. But Eric Young blocks it and hits the pile driver on him, which I thought was a great spot. I've never seen that transition before, which is really cool. Roode does kick out, but shortly after that, he goes and actually pile drives Eric Young, which sort of made me cringe a bit because this is not what Bobby Roode was supposed to be about. The entire story here was that Eric Young was trying to end Roode's career, and Roode's just like, hey, you know what? I'm here to wrestle, I'm here to do my thing, I want my revenge. But to have him pull out the pile driver seemed a little bit too far into the dark side for me. But it still worked out well. It wasn't what ended the match. In the end, Robert Roode basically gets Eric Young up on his shoulders on the apron. It's the Roode bomb from the apron through the table on the outside for the win. Really cool match. Well done. These guys set the bar for the night. And this was a good night for wrestling for Impact. After that, we have Drew Galloway show up. He comes out and basically, hey, it's story time. I remember when wrestling was about the fans. And the same sort of speech we got last week, the whole stand-up for wrestling. As my wife noted, he's got sort of the CM Punk voice of the voiceless thing going on at this point, and we'll have to see how that goes. If they listen to the fans, they start making some of the changes people are suggesting, this could go really well. If they don't listen to the fans, this entire thing could blow up in their face here. After that, MVP shows up, basically to answer Galloway's calls of like, hey, these guys are running roughshod over the show. MVP comes out and says, hey, it's story time for me. You know, you used to be the chosen one. You were set up for success, and you know what? You blew it. So it was kind of nice to sort of watch him come out there and sort of throw that back in the face of Galloway. It works well. MVP is always great on the mic. I don't like the BDC personally. I like every member in the group. I don't like the group as a whole, if that makes any sense. After that, we do get a match between MVP and Galloway. Pretty good back and forth match. Goes on for a little bit. Towards the end, Galloway basically finally gets him hooked up for the Future Shock, which is when the BDC shows up. The rest of them show up, they come out there, and it's like a 4-on-1 beatdown. They basically, at one point, Loki goes for his double foot stomp off the top rope, and MVP backs him down, which is a little bit weird. Like, why would you do that? Then they drag him out of the ring, they pin him up against the ring post, and they yell at Loki to clothesline him. He goes to do that, but Joe sort of hooks his arm in the process. Like, no. And there's that moment where everyone's like, okay, here we go. Samoa Joe turns on the BDC. No. He opens up his track jacket, pulls out the pipe that Galloway had last week. Is like, hit him with this. And you see, at that point, Loki does the basically running sort of clothesline strike with the steel pipe, basically busting open Galloway's. So we're gonna have to see where this one goes, but the BDC is stepping it up, so now Galloway sort of needs his army. Who steps up to help him? We'll have to find out. After that, we got Magnus facing Bram finally. Before the match starts, we see Mickie James with him backstage, so we get the recap of, hey, she's the mother of his child. We get the whole, like, hey, you know what the doctor said, careful about your neck and your shoulder. So we get the weakness going in, which is pretty cool. And Bram stepped it up. Like, he has gone from sort of being this sort of crazy psychopath when he was fighting Abyss that was sort of lukewarm. But, like, this entire match, I'd say, like, 95% of all his moves were, like, to the neck or the back of the head. It was neck breakers. Even if it was, like, punches, it was, like, punches to the back of the head. It was a clothesline to the back of the head. Everything focused there, and that was really cool. But halfway through the match, they're both down. Mickie James comes out. She's cheering on Magnus. Magnus gets the upper hand, and at that point, Bram basically just hits him with a low blow. Sort of a cheap out at that point. But then he basically continues to beat down on Magnus, even post-match. Mickie James is trying to get into the ring, and the ref's like, no, 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 you don't want any of this. At that point, Bram zip ties Magnus to the corner with one of his wrists. And basically at that point, he shoves the referee down. Mickie James finally gets in the ring, tries to protect him. At that point, Bram basically grabs her in a headlock and just starts talking trash to Magnus. Talks trash for a while, and then basically he's like, you know what? Just kiss my boot. Kiss my boot and I'll let her go. And Magnus does, and Bram does let her go. Which is sort of a puzzling thing for me, because when I look at that, like, two things. Number one, like, if Bram is this evil, psychotic character that he is, he should have had his boot kissed and then laid out Mickie James. We know at this point that men versus women is sort of an okay thing. In Impact, we've had a bunch of that, and we'll get to more of it in a minute. Or Mickie James is a wrestler. She's been in a headlock for 5 minutes. Drop to a knee, hit the low blow. Like, one of those two things would have made this segment work for me. But sort of having Bram just sort of like, hey, kiss my boot. Okay, you're a loser. Here, have your lady back. That didn't quite, like, that's a little more mental than I think Bram has been recently. So I would have liked to see the more physical end of that. We followed that up. We finally get Brooke versus Robbie E. And we knew this was not going to be a technical wrestling classic, but this was all the theatrics I love about wrestling. You have DJ ECIII out there doing his entire DJ routine as the intro for Let's Get Ready to Robbie instead of Rumble. That was a nice little intro there. He comes out with, oh god, his tag team partner, Mr. Spectacular, and Angelina Love, and they come out in this whole sort of like boxing training routine. So they got the stool, they got the spit bucket, like Robbie E comes out in the hoodie. It's very sort of Eye of the Tiger Rocky at that point. Gets out of the ring, then we bring Brooke out, happy and bubbly, and she's basically just ready to sort of kick ass and take names. After every single move that Robbie does, he basically, at one point, he suplexes her, they just gets back, sits in the corner, sprints off, get a drink of water, okay, I'm ready, round two. After every single move, it was beautiful. Eventually, Brooke gets the upper hand, and then she repeats the process, adding insult to injury, which is really cool. It got lots of interference towards the end. Angelina Love comes up for the distraction, Brooke knocks her down, but then Robbie E comes in and hits her from behind. Same thing with ECIII. At the end, the referee's distracted, and Robbie E basically grabs Brooke in a full Nelson, and Mr. Spectacular comes in and goes for a drop kick on her. She slides out of the way. He hits Robbie E. She wraps him up for the pinfall. You know what? I'm cool with this. I enjoyed the match. It was super fun to watch. And it was storytelling. And I'm a sucker for storytelling. I thought this was done really well. And for something that was a side piece of The Amazing Race, I think this turned into a pretty cool storyline. And it showed Brooke can hold her own against the guys. So where does this go next? I don't know. Maybe, I don't think we'll see her keep facing the guys, but that definitely steps her up for like a title shot or something in the women's division at this point. After that, we get to our main event of the night. You know what? We've got Rockstar Spud versus ECIII for the main event. And at first I was sort of surprised at this, and then when you think about it, this has been building for, what, a year and a half? And basically Spud walks out there, he's got like the soccer whole motif down, comes down to the ring, starts singing the national anthem without a mic, and the entire crowd is just behind him the entire time. EC3 comes out, they start talking about his, I guess it's the brace he's got on his arm, how it's illegal for him to have it out there, it's okay, he's Dixie Carter's nephew, so that's fine. This match was amazing. Like, I went in with some pretty high expectations for what this match would be like, and they blew me away. We've seen that Spud can wrestle. We've seen him hit his high-flying moves, and this was just a continuation of that. He hit these crazy, like, flip plancha off the top rope to the outside. But pretty early on, Tyrus comes down to the ring during a distraction. Basically, Spud's outside the ring. EC3's got the ref distracted. Tyrus comes down, grabs Spud, just power bombs in the middle of the ring, and rolls him in. At that point, you sort of cringe, because like, okay, you know what, that's it. EC3 goes over, sets up the pinfall, gets the 1-2, and Spud kicks out. And the entire place blew up at that point. It was amazing. And EC3 played it perfectly. Super shock, super awe. It was well done. At that point, Tyrus tries to interfere again. Mr. Ken Anderson shows up. Basically, the two of them fight it out. He hits the mic check on the outside, knocking out Tyrus. EC3 basically hits this sort of crazy, he's got the brace on his arm, he basically clocks Anderson with it, takes him out. So once again, we're back to just Spud and EC3, but he nails Spud with it and busts Spud wide open. And Rockstar Spud bleeds like a stuck pig. He bleeds something like Ric Flair bleeds. There's an amazing amount of blood in this match, in the ring. But at that point, he just takes Spud pillar to post. Just slamming his face into the turnbuckles, all sorts of slams. Like, they cut back to Robbie E. He's got, like, this blood splatter on his face. It's gruesome. But everything he does, Spud keeps getting up from. Like, he hits move after move after move, and this Spud will not stay down. Finally gets to the point where Spud basically can't even get to his feet. He was basically climbing up EC3 trying to get to his feet. And EC3 reluctantly at that point hits the 1%er on him and takes the pinfall for the 3 count. After the match, he gives us a great speech about, hey, you know what? We're not going to go back to the way we were, but you know what? You've earned my respect. You've earned these people's respect. I'm not going to shave your head. You know what? This is like, you've earned this. And then 1993 calls, he screams, not, and basically continues to pummel him, and indeed does shave his head in the middle of the ring, which I thought was amazing. It gives Spud the rub that he needs of establishing, like, he can go, and at the same time, it keeps all the amazing heel heat that EC3 built up over this. I thought it was a great show. We did pretty good this week. We had 5 matches. We only had 2 clean finishers, though. The Robbie E. Brooke match, we had sort of interference on there. And MVP Galloway and Magnus Bram were both DQs. So we don't really see any finish on those storylines. But we'll have to see where those go. I do think we are actually done with Robbie Roode versus Eric Young at this point. And probably Brooke Robbie E. as well. I think we'll have to see where they move on to next. Next week is the big match to be Kurt Angle versus Lashley for the title, so we'll have to see how that goes. Thank you, TNA, for not spoiling today's results with your advertisements like you did last week. That was painful to watch. But that's my review of this week's Impact. I hope you enjoyed my review. If so, please click this logo right here, the Rampage review, or the Impact logo. Either one of these will bring you to a link to allow you to subscribe to my channel. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments here. You can also follow me on Twitter. The screen name is right here as well, at Major_Rampage on Twitter. And I'll see you guys next week.